And welcome once again to another edition of 10 Count. I'm your host, Steve Kim. We're here from the beautiful city of Santa Monica at Hollywood Smoke. I'm joined, as always, by the esteemed panel of Doug Fischer, RingTV, and from the LA Sentinel, Ken Miller. And folks, the big story dominating boxing, it's going to happen May 2nd at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao will finally meet. And Kreskin Miller, the last time we were here, against all odds, yes, we bow down to you. You said it was going to happen. What indication were you given back then when it didn't look all that good that this was actually going to come to fruition?
Well, the biggest indication that I was given was the pulse of the boxing fans were speaking volumes about whether or not they were going to buy another Mayweather fight and whether or not Pacquiao standing alone had any value here in the States. And I knew for unequivocally that no one, that MGM Grand was going to be all comp, mostly 90, 60, 70% comp for a Mayweather fight if he fought anybody other than Pacquiao. The other thing that made me really hedge my bet was that Pacquiao is in a lot of financial straits. In the Philippines, abroad, here in the United States, I've heard estimates that it's somewhere in the 60, almost 70 million range. And the fact that Showtime, CBS, had 2 fights left, and they were looking at their books, and they said, look, this does not look good. And so this was the only real opportunity that they had. And regardless what Mayweather said, regardless what Al Heyman said, CBS was going to make this fight happen.
Well, speaking of CBS, Doug, I'm beginning to think Les Moonves, we need to send him to the Middle East. Because if he could bring these guys together, because let's be honest, I've been told by a couple people, without him, this does not happen.
Yeah, he got it done. And I think, Ken, you would agree with this because you suggested it in previous 10 Count episodes. He was basically going to make an ultimatum to Floyd. Basically say, hey, Floyd, if your 5th fight on our contract is not against Manny Pacquiao, we don't want a 5th fight or a 6th fight. And I have to wonder if somewhere in their contract there was something where if they didn't want the agreement, their deal to continue, that they could cut it off at a certain place and maybe even ask for some money back if they fronted them any money. I don't know if you know anything about that.
No, but I do know that there was a clause in that contract that gave Showtime CBS a strong arm to where, see, perception was that the first 4 fights, Floyd's going to pick whoever it is that he wants to fight. But everybody that he picked had to be signed off by them. In the last 2 fights, they said, wait a minute. We are now going to use our authority to mandate who it is that you're going to fight. And if Floyd refuses that, then he breaches the contract.
Well, I think there's a couple factors here. Manny Pacquiao, or you like to just call him the modern-day Joe Louis, he had financial issues. His pay-per-view value had diminished a lot by at least 2/3.
Yeah.
At least 2/3. Mayweather had kept most of his value in terms of numbers, but here's the problem. He was guaranteed $32.5 million. Now, that goes back to what you said. Showtime was hemorrhaging money. So they needed each other. For 5 years, they could live in parallel, separate universes, but now they needed each other. So the other question is, Doug, is this fight, quote, unquote, too late, as some people think?
It's not too late as far as the general public is concerned. I think for hardcore fans, certainly members of the boxing media, or even the general sports media, we've been hearing about this fight. We've followed all of the trials and tribulations, the ups and downs of the negotiations, the failed negotiations. We don't even know how many times it was legitimately talked about and fell apart in back rooms. For us, we're a little bit sick of it. For boxing purists, for hardcore fans, we haven't forgotten that Manny Pacquiao was KTFO just 3 fights ago. I mean, for a while, after December 2012, when Pacquiao was knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez, we were like, okay, it's a dead issue. What's the point of even talking about this? But Manny, to his credit, and Bob Arum and Top Rank to their credit, he resurrected himself, and he had a good 2014. So, based on Pacquiao's 2014, winning the rematch against Timothy Bradley and looking very good against a young undefeated but unheralded title holder in Chris Algieri, it sort of rekindled it even within the boxing community. As a boxing writer, I have mixed feelings about the fight because I really thought the fight should have happened in 2010, no later than 2011. But I'm also happy for the boxing industry because we do show the world that every now and then we can come together and make a super fight that captures the attention of the world, and for just all the fans out there who have wanted to see it and are finally going to get what they demanded.
Ken, was the demise of Pacquiao, as Mark Twain said, exaggerated, because he beat Tim Bradley in 2012. I think most people believe that. He was beginning to dominate Marquez. Then he hung the curveball, and it was a shot heard around the world. You take away one right hand, which I know you can't do, but you take away one split second, and you look at it now. Can you name me 3 or 4 fighters better than Manny Pacquiao?
Well, I can't name you 3 or 4, but what I will tell you is this unequivocally. In the sport of boxing, any fighter, any great fighter or any not so great fighter, there's a number of elements, outside elements, that they can come back from and still be at the top of their game. They can go to prison, they can have some drug problems, they can have woman problems, they can have some tax issues. A knockout isn't on the agenda. And the knockout that he suffered before these last, look, everyone knows the 3 fighters that he's fought after the knockout couldn't crack an egg with their punch. And I've heard that the first Bradley fight that Bob Arum staged with Pacquiao, he kind of would have been okay if Bradley would have beat Pacquiao again. But that didn't happen because they never conceived that this Mayweather fight would happen. They had really given up that it would happen. I think that Manny Pacquiao is a dead man walking. I really do.
Real quick before we wrap this up here, Pacquiao-Mayweather is the biggest fight since?
I think it's the biggest fight in terms of casual fan interest since Mike Tyson fought Lennox Lewis in 2002, and I think it has the most significance for a welterweight bout or between 2 pound-for-pound type fighters since Thomas Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard fought in 1981.
Economically, it's the biggest thing we're ever going to see, no matter what anybody says. I don't believe in that going back and trying to pigeonhole this moment into some other moment that is long since passed. It is, without question, the biggest boxing event in the history of the sport.
Before we wrap it up, my pick will be Trinidad De La Hoya 1999. I think that fight is overlooked because, quite frankly, it really wasn't that good. In the upcoming months, we'll break down this fight from an X's and O perspective. So on behalf of Doug Fischer and Ken Miller, this is Steve Kim saying till the next round, goodbye, everybody.